from him on a very difficult subject, that is recurrent pregnancy loss, which is being suffered by most of the women nowadays. So, sir, its stage is all yours. You can start.
Thank you, Nilabda. It's a great privilege for me to come to this webinar on recurrent pregnancy loss. So we can start sharing now. So I hope the slides are visible to you. A very good evening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. A very good evening. Let me give my introduction. I'm Dr. Abhishek Bhadra. I'm a consultant gynecologist and obstetrician. I'm presently working as an assistant professor at Medical College, Kolkata. And I also practice in North Kolkata, mainly in the areas of Salt Lake, Newtown, and VIP Road. So today's discussion, I'd like to discuss some points about recurrent pregnancy loss. Now, as we know, as we can see, as we can guess, as we can imagine, a pregnancy loss.
Sir, I'm extremely sorry to interrupt. Can we go full screen? That would be better for the audience.
Sure, sure. So now it is fine, I guess.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So as I was saying that this term pregnancy loss, as we can guess or as we can understand it, is a devastating concept or a devastating thing for the woman, the pregnant lady, her husband, her family, and as well as a doctor on a whole. So now if we add the term recurrent with pregnancy loss, it becomes even more devastating. So recurrent pregnancy loss is something which is a very important topic and which should be dealt with very seriously. Now in this talk, I would like to explain the various aspects of recurrent pregnancy loss. I will start with introduction and definition of recurrent pregnancy loss, the epidemiology, which consists of risk factors, causes of recurrent pregnancy loss, the associated history and investigations which are meant for this subject, the management of recurrent pregnancy loss as a whole, and some aspects about surgical management and a medical management also with a focus on progesterone. Coming to the introduction, some quotes about miscarriage and recurrent pregnancy loss. So miscarriage can be a devastating loss for the woman, their partners, and their families. And between 20 to 25% of pregnancies end in a miscarriage, which has a major clinical impact and psychological impact on the woman and their families. So a miscarriage is defined as the pregnancy loss or a spontaneous loss of pregnancy before the fetus reaches viability. Now, what is viability? Whenever a pregnancy reaches 24 weeks of gestation, according to the European guidelines, according to guidelines which are prevalent in the United Kingdom, it is called a viable pregnancy. In India, the age of viability is 28 weeks. So a miscarriage is defined as any spontaneous loss of pregnancy before the fetus reaches viability, which is in our country 28 weeks and in Western countries about 24 weeks. Now we will follow some important guidelines, and the most important guideline here is the ESHRE, and the latest guideline is that which was published in 2017. So it is the European Society for Human Reproduction and Embryology. So recurrent pregnancy loss could be considered after the loss of 2 or more pregnancies. So ESHRE defines any loss of 2 or more pregnancies as recurrent pregnancy loss. That means whenever a pregnant lady miscarries for the first time, it is called a spontaneous pregnancy loss. It can happen, and usually what happens after that sporadic pregnancy loss, the next pregnancy usually goes well. But suppose in a woman who has 2 or more pregnancy losses consecutively, that is known as a recurrent pregnancy loss. So coming to the definition again, the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, that is RCOG in the United Kingdom, They define that recurrent pregnancy loss refers to 3 consecutive pregnancy losses, including the non-visualized ones. So they are more conservative in their approach. So they have this number 3 in their definition. But according to the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, that is ASRM, RPL is defined as 2 or more clinical pregnancy losses, not necessarily consecutive. So they have again added this term that is not necessarily consecutive. This could be different. According to our guideline, that is FOXI, it states that recurrent pregnancy miscarriage or recurrent pregnancy loss is spontaneous loss of 3 or more consecutive pregnancies before 20 weeks of gestation. And threatened miscarriage is a pregnancy complicated by bleeding before than 20 weeks of gestation. So these are various definitions from various aspects from various parts of the world. But for a clinician, it is very important to know that you cannot wait after the pregnant woman loses 2 spontaneous pregnancies. So it is very important that we should start investigating the pregnant woman after she has 2 pregnancy losses. So here we can compare the various guidelines and the various consensus around the world. We can see that we have ESHRE 2017 guidelines. We have ASRM, that is the American Society of Reproductive Medicine 2013 guideline, and we have the RCOG, that is the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists guideline of 2011. Now, coming to the third row, we can see that ESHRE will define recurrent pregnancy loss after 2 or more losses. ASRM will also define recurrent pregnancy loss after 2 losses, but here they will add the term consecutive or non-consecutive, and RCOG will define the loss after 3 losses. So whatever it might be, it is very important that after 2 or more losses, we should start investigating the case and we should start managing the pregnant lady. So that's regarding the definition. We will next come to epidemiology, which will comprise risk factors and causes of recurrent pregnancy loss. Now, it constitutes about 1 to 5% of infertile couple and 12 to 15% of all pregnancies. Now, here is something which should be discussed. Now, among all the pregnancies, about 12 to 15% of the pregnancies will have recurrent pregnancy loss. Now, what about sporadic or spontaneous pregnancy loss? It is about 20%. That is 1 in 5. So out of 5 ladies, 1 will miscarry. Out of 100 pregnancies, 20 will miscarry on its own first time, and that is a sporadic pregnancy loss. But out of that 100 women, 12 to 15 women will have recurrent pregnancy loss. So this is the differentiating point between a sporadic pregnancy loss, that is 1, and a recurrent pregnancy loss, that is 2 or more pregnancy losses. And in the infertile couple, that is a different segment. The estimate is about 1 to 5%. So what could be the risk factors of recurrent pregnancy losses? The most important aspect is age. So with the increase in maternal age, the risk of recurrent pregnancy loss increases. It has been seen that it is about 13 to 15% when the woman is very young, that is below 20 years. In the proper age, that is 20 to 24 or 25 to 29, that is between 20 to 30, about 10 to 12% women will suffer from recurrent pregnancy loss. But as the woman crosses 30, the rate also increases. So between 30 to 35, it is about 15%. Between 35 to 40, it rises to 25%. And when the woman crosses 40 years of age, it is more than 50%. And when it is more than 45 years, it is about 90%. So age is the most important factor which determines a pregnancy loss, and most importantly, recurrent pregnancy loss. Now coming to the husband, advanced paternal age has also been identified as a risk factor in pregnancy losses. So that was a very important aspect. The second important aspect is stress. So a high stress level is a very important determining factor in women who are suffering from recurrent pregnancy loss, and especially in those women, we must have the approach of tender loving care. Now, tender loving care, or TLC, does not mean that it's only from the doctor. It is also important that tender loving care should be from the family as well, from the friends, relatives, her surroundings. Everybody should give her a tender loving care. And it has been shown that TLC, or tender loving care, improves the pregnancy rates. The third important factor is obesity and smoking. Obese women, they have a greater tendency to miscarry, and especially recurrent pregnancy loss despite good conception rate. This point needs to be included in preconceptional counseling. It is always important to reduce the weight, achieve a proper body mass index or BMI before somebody embarks in a pregnancy. And smoking is another important thing which is not very relevant in our community, but it is mainly important in the Western world, that smoking can cause pregnancy losses, and especially RPL. There are some aspects of occupational exposures and environmental exposures which lead to miscarriages and recurrent pregnancy losses. The other important factors are chronic endometritis, which is a condition where the endometrium, or the inside of the uterus, becomes infected, and so it cannot keep a pregnancy and miscarries it. An important aspect is also an endometrial decidualization. So what is decidualization? Whenever the lady becomes pregnant, the inside of the uterus, or the endometrium, becomes decidualized. So decidualization helps in sustaining a pregnancy or in keeping a pregnancy, while improper decidualization will lead to pregnancy losses. A very, very important factor is endocrine factor, which comprises of two important things: diabetes mellitus, especially if it is uncontrolled, thyroid disease, and mainly those subset of women who are having PCOS, hyperprolactinemia, and luteal phase deficiency. Another important aspect is genetic factors, where the parental chromosomal translocations are the main culprits. There are some immune factors which are under investigations, and scientific research is going on. The last but not the least is infective agents. Now, let me tell you that whatever we have discussed till now, these comprise about 50% of the causes of recurrent pregnancy loss. The remaining 50% is still unknown. That means the remaining 50% of the causes are still not known to us. And so we are not in a position to explain the couple who presents to us with recurrent pregnancy losses, in whom all these known factors are excluded. Another important aspect of risk factor is thrombophilia. Now, this thrombophilia means a woman has a tendency to clot in her blood vessels. Now, as you know, when a pregnancy happens, there is a developing fetus and there is a developing placenta. Now, all the blood comes from the mother towards the baby through the placenta. Now, if there is thrombophilia, that is a love towards the blood being clotted more, so what will happen? The circulation will not be effective, and that will lead to pregnancy losses. So this thrombophilia can be inherited, that means running in the family, or it could be acquired. Again, in inherited thrombophilia, we have two varieties. One is low risk and the other is high risk. So the main important aspect of low risk thrombophilia is there is a genetic problem, or a or a chromosomal or a genetic problem, which is usually called a factor V laden heterozygous mutation. So it is usually managed by a low molecular weight heparin or unfractionated heparin, and there is need for anticoagulants, and postpartum anticoagulation is needed in those cases with high risk factors. The other aspect is high risk thrombophilia, inherited variety, and which is due to something which is known as antithrombin deficiency. And here also the role of unfractionated heparin and low molecular heparin are very important. So these two conditions are for inherited thrombophilia. Next, we come to a condition which is known as acquired thrombophilia, and the main culprit here is something called antiphospholipid syndrome, or APLA. So these comprises about 5 to 20% of females with recurrent pregnancy loss. And we have two aspects of antiphospholipid syndrome. One is the clinical aspect, the other one is the biochemical aspect. Now, in the clinical aspect, we have a history of recurrent pregnancy loss, which is loss of 3 or more pregnancies consecutively, or early onset preeclampsia, that is before 34 weeks of pregnancy, or unexplained pregnancy loss of a morphologically normal fetus after 10 weeks. Now, these are the clinical definitions of APLA. In the biochemical aspect, we have antibodies like lupus anticoagulant antibodies, anti-cardiolipin antibodies, and anti-beta-2 glycoprotein antibodies. And these antibodies remain in the body and they are responsible for the recurrent pregnancy loss in this subset of population. And it is very, very important that a conjoined therapy of low dose heparin, that is 75 milligram per day, to be taken after dinner at night, and unfractionated heparin or low molecular heparin, mainly low molecular heparin in doses which satisfy the mothers, like depends on the pre-pregnancy weight. So these two combination, low dose aspirin and low molecular heparin, this can lead to about 90 to 100% cure in antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, and the mother has a favorable pregnancy outcome. There are some factors which are also important, which are called anatomical factors. And because the concept or the theme is that if the uterus is not perfect, then how could the pregnancy stay? So there are two important aspects. It is congenital uterine malformations, where we get septate uterus, where there is a septa inside the uterus. We have bicornuate uterus in some women, and we have also arcuate uterus. These are uterine abnormalities or uterine malformations which can lead to recurrent pregnancy losses. Another important aspect is cervical incompetence. So what is the cervix? It is the gateway between the uterus and the outside. So if the gateway is tight enough, it will sustain a pregnancy. If it is loose and weak, it will lead to pregnancy losses. So that is the concept of cervical incompetence in recurrent pregnancy losses. So we have known the risk factors, the causes of RPL. Now we will come to the history. So history is very important. When we clinicians sit in the OPD and the couple comes to us with a history of recurrent pregnancy loss, we must take a detailed history. So it starts with previous obstetric history, including the preterm births, bleeding tendencies of the woman, early onset hypertension, because this leads to the diagnosis of APLA, documentation of pregnancy, whether by radiological study or by histopathological studies. The most important aspect is a sympathetic approach or a tender loving care approach. And what I have already told, the remaining 50% which are unexplained. So unexplained recurrent pregnancy loss is considered the diagnosis if a complete genetic, anatomical, immune evaluation was performed and all the investigations come as normal. So we can say that the rest 50% is still unknown or unexplained, and here tender loving care from the family, from the husband, from the relatives, and also from the doctor and from the treating team is very important for the mother to have a successful pregnancy. So the counseling approach should be important. The couple should be dealt together. I've already told, and I'm again focusing on this point, that the cause is not found in 50% of cases, even after extensive investigation. The most common cause of sporadic losses are chromosomal abnormalities. Unexplained loss may not affect the prognosis. Pre-pregnancy follow-up and treatment must be stressed upon. Thus, repeated counseling, support, provision of psychological care is an integral part of RPL. And you should give time to your patients. Enough time, adequate time often leads to successful pregnancy outcomes. So coming on to the investigations. So what I have stressed upon that APLA or antiphospholipid syndrome is a very important aspect. And if you can treat them, you can get results about 90 to 100%. So anti-cardiolipin antibodies are very important. IgG and IgM variant. Anti-beta-2 glycoprotein 1 antibodies are also important. Again, IgG and IgM, and lupus anticoagulant. So if you find that these things are raised, and if you can give the combination of low dose aspirin and low molecular weight heparin, you can achieve a very, very successful pregnancy outcome. Karyotyping of the conceptors and of parents. These comprise a very small part, but it is very important. So when the pregnant lady comes to us with recurrent pregnancy losses, we should always send the product of conception or the pregnancy product for karyotyping. So the RCOG states that cytogenetic analysis should be performed on products of conception in patients with RPL. And basically, we can find a normal report or an abnormal report. The abnormal report could be an unbalanced translocation, which is a very scientific term, but it is an unbalanced translocation. And then we should look for chromosomal abnormalities in the parents, which can lead us to things called balanced translocations. Ultrasound is a very basic investigation which should be done for structural abnormalities of the uterus. Previously, when ultrasound was not very rampant, about say 20, 30 years back, hysterosalpingography HSG used to be a investigation process, but not now. Plus, to complement ultrasound, we have a very important thing in our hand right now, which is hysteroscopy. Now, hysteroscopy is like a small camera, a very pointed small camera, which goes inside the uterus, and we can see the entire uterine cavity. And so any abnormalities in the uterine cavity, like I have previously told, like arcuate uterus, septate uterus, bicornuate uterus, all the structural abnormalities can be beautifully seen in a hysteroscopy, and we can treat surgically. And after that, the pregnant lady goes on for a successful pregnancy. We have already discussed about inherited thrombophilia, the factor V latent mutation, and the antithrombin deficiency. We have told about cytogenetic analysis, but that is only to be done after we have done the product of conception test for karyotyping. And the two most important endocrine factors are hypothyroidism and uncontrolled diabetes, and hyperprolactinemia, and PCO, that is polycystic ovary subset of population. They are also very important to investigate whenever they are coming with an additional complication of recurrent pregnancy losses. So this table summarizes the etiology, the tests for diagnosis, and the treatment options. Now coming to the uterine factor, we can see that we have the option of ultrasonography, hysterosalpingography, which was used previously, and now we have hysteroscopy, we have MR, that is magnetic resonance imaging. So treatment options in anatomical factors could be hysteroscopic resection of the septum. We can cut the septum and make the uterine cavity dilated. We can go for a myomectomy if there are myomas, especially submucous myomas. We can also go for hysteroscopic removal of polyps, where we go inside the uterus and see the polyp and take it out. And we can also go for adhesiolysis, where we take a scissor inside the uterus and cut all the adhesions inside the uterus so that it makes a room for the pregnancy to stay. Antiphospholipid syndrome, we have the three important biochemical aspects of anti-cardiolipin antibody, anti-beta-2-glycoprotein-1 antibody, and lupus anticoagulant. The main treatment option here is heparin, that is low molecular weight heparin and low dose aspirin, the combination therapy. In endocrine abnormality, let me focus on thyroid stimulating hormone, that is TSH. If there is problem like hypothyroidism, we can go for levothyroxine replacement. There could be problem of prolactin, where we give bromocriptine or nowadays cabergoline. Fasting glucose or HbA1c is very important to diagnose previously undiagnosed diabetes. And in those women, diabetes control, weight loss, nutrition, metformin, all aspects are very important. Now coming to genetic aspect, we have discussed about the karyotype of the product of conception, and we can also do the parental karyotype if there is abnormality in the previous study. And here the treatment option is genetic counseling, and we can go for PGD, that is pre-implantation genetic diagnosis for balanced translocation. Environmental factor like smoking, drug use, excessive alcohol, and caffeine intake, it eliminates environmental toxins if we can identify them. I have discussed about psychological aspect, where psychological support is very important. And in unexplained recurrent pregnancy losses, the main aspect is tender loving care, and we have no consensus guideline on progesterone supplementation, immunomodulating treatments, or pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. But tender loving care is very important. So there are some other aspects like progesterone supplementation, antibiotic treatment, appropriate treatment for conditions like in certain cultures, lifestyle modifications. But There are no consensus, and mainly it is empirical. So how to evaluate? A recent study has shown that the use of selective RPL evaluation, defined as RPL evaluation if the second miscarriage is diploid, decreases the healthcare costs when compared with universal RPL evaluation, defined as evaluation after the second miscarriage of 10 weeks gestation. Now, to put this complicated line in a simple way, it means that after the second pregnancy is also miscarried, we should start our investigations so that our healthcare costs decreases both for the uh, uh, familial aspect and also for the healthcare aspect. Now coming to the management of RPL. Now smoking cessation is very important, which is very uh, important in the Western world. Weight loss is important throughout the world, and now India, this subcontinent, is becoming a capital for obese women and diabetes. So increased BMI is the second most important factor of pregnancy losses, and we should always focus on weight loss before pregnancy. Now, alcohol consumption reduction is also important. Stress reduction is important. And another important aspect is decreased caffeine intake. So these are lifestyle modifications or changes which could lead to increased pregnancy outcomes. Surgical, I have told you, the hysteroscopic septal resection, adhesiolysis, polypectomy, etc. All these things can lead to successful pregnancy outcomes later in the pregnancy. Medical management, I've already told about the importance of aspirin and heparin. Now, ASHRAE recommends the use of low-dose aspirin starting before conception and prophylactic dose heparin, that is LMWH, or unfractionated, starting at a date of positive pregnancy test over no treatment for women with APS and a history of 3 or more losses. Cochrane 2020 concludes that combination of aspirin and heparin may increase the live birth rate in women with persistent APL when compared with aspirin treatment alone. And so it is a widely used therapy and is a preventive strategy, therapeutic strategy to reduce the risk of recurrent pregnancy losses. So now coming to the role of progesterone, so it is a very debated topic. Progesterone has always been a debatable issue, and now it has also got a role in the management of recurrent pregnancy losses. So as we know that progesterone is derived from cholesterol steroids, mainly produced in the body and also outside. And it is produced mainly by the corpus luteum and the placenta with some contribution from the other glands like adrenals. So these are all the basic things about progesterones, and it is known to induce the secretory changes of the residualization, which I was speaking about, in the lining of the uterus, and is essential for a successful implantation of the fertilized egg, and it is indispensable for the establishment and maintenance of pregnancy. Now, miscarriages may be due to inadequate secretion of progesterone, which I have told, inadequate decidualization, or luteal phase defect, and hence progesterone is prescribed in early pregnancy to sustain it. So that is the importance, and that is the logic behind it. We have the Cochrane review regarding progesterone. Progesterone may prevent miscarriage for women with recurrent miscarriages, and we have also the meta-analysis done throughout the world. So now coming to the preparations of progesterone, so there are varieties of preparations. We have the oral, the injectables, the vaginal, the capsule, and whatnot. But due to the high first-pass metabolism, there are other routes than oral. So oral is not the route of choice because we have the first-pass metabolism in the liver, which leads to a decreased amount of progesterone in the body. And the best route is the vaginal route, or injectable routes are also available. So these are better than oral route. And now what are the kinds of progesterone that we should use? So there are varieties like micronized progesterone. We have different progesterone nowadays, which is called dydrogesterone. So these are closely related to endogenous progesterone, both in the molecular structure as well as in the pharmacological effects. So dydrogesterone is known to have a immunomodulatory properties, is decreasing the inflammatory markers or inflammatory cytokines in early pregnancy studies. But these are all in the study phase. So we know that whenever something is in the study phase, there are trials which are going throughout the world. So the important trials are the PROMISE trial, which has shown a biological effect favoring progesterone in recurrent pregnancy loss. We have another trial, which is the PRISM trial, which has shown that there is benefit and the live birth rate was higher. So these are promising trials. And so the FOXY, that is the main body in our country. So the argument for use of progesterone is that vaginal micronized progesterone and dydrogesterone, they have no evidence of harm, and they have some evidence of benefit, although not coming from huge multicentric trials. The decision should be based on the clinician's discretion, the clinical expertise, until strong evidence is available to recommend the use. And the dose is different for oral dydrogesterone. It is about 10 milligram twice daily till 20 weeks mainly, or throughout the pregnancy in high risk cases, or micronized progesterone 400 milligram per day vaginally till 20 weeks, or till we have done the anatomy scan and we are sure that everything is normal. So there are additional therapies. This is an evolving subject. We have additional therapies, upcoming treatment options, like we have the GCSF treatment, HCG treatment, but these are under trials, under reviews. We have treatments like metformins, dopamine agonists, steroids, and many other things. But the main aspect, as I have told, is a tender loving care. So now coming to the conclusion, we are near the end of this presentation. So recurrent pregnancy loss is a complex condition requiring consideration of multiple factors for appropriate workup and management. The decision to intervene depends on the benefit to risk ratio of the proposed treatment. Like we have told, that it depends upon the clinical expertise and the clinical scenario. Antiphospholipid syndrome, an important aspect, uterine structural defects and structural chromosomal abnormalities are the most strongly tied to recurrent pregnancy losses or recurrent miscarriages after we have considered the age of the woman. Progesterone has been found to prevent RPL. So it is as important that for all couples, they should be offered referrals to centers or to clinicians with specific expertise in the management and counseling of this condition. Now, let me tell you, after this grim discussion about recurrent pregnancy loss, there is always a ray of hope, a silver lining. In about many cases, or in almost all cases, if you can deal with the patient, the mother, the husband, the family, with tender loving care, we can spend enough time, we can give proper treatment, target oriented, we can have a very successful outcome. And it is very satisfying when the woman gives a live birth. So thank you again. Thank you, BSV. Thank you, the organizers, for inviting me. And I hope I could give light to some aspects of recurrent pregnancy loss. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this elaborate and detailed discussion and presentation from recurrent pregnancy loss from you. And I hope everyone will understand your slides very elaborately and very simple slide you have presented. So thank you very much once again, Dr. Bhodro, for giving us time, giving us your precious time. And we hope to see you in more such sessions in coming future. And once again, thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome. Good night.
আর স্যার অভিষেক দা আপনার ওই রেকর্ডিংটা পজ করে তারপরে কিন্তু এন্ড করবো আমি, ঠিক আছে? আপনি পজ করুন।
So I'll stop the share, right?
হ্যাঁ, শেয়ারটা স্টপ করুন, তারপরে দেন ইউ পজ দ্য রেকর্ডিং।
Okay, I'm